Picture Minecraft, the game that's described well as Legos on the computer. This game has gone so far and become such a large phenomenon that you probably would have trouble finding a kid that can speak who doesn't know or at least has heard of the name Minecraft. Why do I bring this up? Well, it's an existential phenomenon. And understanding a bit about Minecraft and games in general, I think helps us understand a bit more about our own existential existence. So let's dive a bit deeper. If you're unfamiliar, as I mentioned in the intro, Minecraft is simply Legos on the computer, in the sense that you take a bunch of blocks in a generated world and build and destroy and craft whatever you want. The name is a moniker coming from the two large actions you can do. You can mine, break, and kind of collect the world around you with iron, dirt, grass, whatever, and craft. You can use that to create your own sort of home, your own sort of fortress, your own computer even. The lengths to which and the creativity with which this game holds is really seemingly unlimited. You can go into even old YouTube and find clips of people creating the first computers in Minecraft. Minecraft has a sort of coding like tool called Redstone, for example. And so even people like kids can go and create these phenomenal constructions. There are people who go around and can create entire songs and melodies and beautiful symphonies with music blocks, sound blocks. You can create all of these different incredible crafts and creations, and that's the whole point of Minecraft. Now, I say the whole point of Minecraft, but the biggest critique I got as a child when I played the game was, well, why play this game? Why play Minecraft when there's no real goal in sight, right? And I invite you to take a peer back into your brain as a child growing up. When you don't even have the ability to speak fully yet, you're given toys thrown in front of you and are expected to play with them. But know that you don't really have an objective at hand, right? No dad goes to their 2-year-old daughter and says, hey, Jesse, I want you to play with this toy because you have an objective to defeat the enemy general and capture the princess. No, that's not a thing, right? We just play because we want to play as children. And so the heart for creativity and wanting to learn more does not die. I want to pull a clip too from a recent Vsauce video he had finally uploaded after 2 years of silence on how our human ingenuity and drive to continuously do more and more pushes us as a species.
Oh no, my brain evolved to eat berries in a cave. No, it evolved to reach the lushness of Southeast Asia and then cross the Wallace line, not because it had to, and not because it could, but because what laid beyond was next, and we've got autoplay on.
So it's apparent that even if there's not an immediate goal in sight, we still have a drive to do more, to learn and think and explore, which is innate to our human nature. And so with Minecraft, unlike other video games like Super Mario, where the goal is to go through these 8 levels, defeat King Koopa, and save Princess Peach, there's nothing like that in Minecraft. You're just thrown into a generated world, of which there are many, many different ones, and you're given the go. That's it. It's a world of your own exploration and a complete sandbox game, as it's called. This whole genre of game is called a sandbox game, pointing to the childlike idea and fantasy of the sandbox. You don't have any innate goal. You don't have any set goal even. You just have the sandbox in front of you to play. One question I posed a long time ago as well is real life the same as Minecraft? In that, when you think of the thrown into the world perspective of Minecraft and our own existence, is there such a big difference there? Maybe there isn't. And that's what I want to propose to you. Our life is as existential as we make it. And so in the sense that you can enjoy playing Minecraft, you can enjoy playing in a sandbox, you can enjoy playing with Legos, even though there's no ultimate purpose or ultimate goal or ultimate rule or what have you, it's still there for us to enjoy. Let me take you to another analogy. Okay. Well, maybe I like the games though. I don't like Minecraft. I don't like Legos. I like a book that has a story that I know has a proper ending, I want to open the Lord of the Rings and I know that they got to take the ring and throw it into the Mount Doom in Mordor and they got to stop the curse, stop Sauron, save Middle Earth. I like that. I need a story, and I think our existence is better set as a story. Okay, but let me make another analogy to you. Maybe, even if we create a story for our own existence, it's not something innate in and of the existence itself. It's something we create, a tool, perhaps, to help guide us there and fight the absurdity that is existence. Of course, we can look at many philosophers that talk about this absurdity, that talk about this nihilism, and that talk about this existentialism. But I want to tell you, as I've said in many other videos, that our point and purpose of life isn't there innately. It's something we make, and that's what creates the greatest meaning in our world. So if you're asking for a life that has more of a meaning, perhaps you're approaching this from a religious perspective, as 3/4 of the world seem to, and that you have some sort of divine goal or calling or meaning or purpose and wish to fulfill that. That's what drives you, and it's hard for you to imagine a world where such a divine meaning or purpose does not exist. Well, again, I point you to the sandbox you played in as a child, and I point you to the digital sandbox many millions of kids and adults play in today through Minecraft, and say, well, maybe you can still have a fulfilling and enjoyable life without an innate purpose or drive or direction, as you might say. Okay, but there exist games, there exist stories that do have the rules. Monopoly. Monopoly is set to be a critique of capitalism, which is another point for another tangent for another story. But the whole point is, well, you have this money, you have this goal, so we play Monopoly for that reason. And that's why Monopoly is fun, because it has these rules. And so you can imagine then, okay, see, Monopoly is a game, we have the rules set there that we create, that we follow, and so that's why it works. That's why it makes sense, and life's the same way. But even in the game of Monopoly, take a step back and think of the meta Monopoly. What is Monopoly? Again, we answered a second ago, well, it's all these rules to buy the plots of land, to put the houses and the hotels down, to roll the dice and spin around, to follow the rules, to get the get out of jail free cards, to draw from the community treasure chest, whatever it is. Monopoly is all of these things. But what is Monopoly really? Monopoly is a piece of cardboard and plastic with ink and some chiseled holes inside of it. And so these sapien-like creatures called humans gather around this piece of cardboard, pieces of paper, pieces of plastic and metal, and throw a piece of plastic. Move pieces in accordance, and that's Monopoly. Monopoly in and of itself is just a collection of things. That depressing? Well, when you realize that for the first time, it could be shocking. But the time you enjoy playing Monopoly is not a lie, nor is it a fiction. Maybe then it's a useful fiction, because I still want to enjoy games. I still want to play Monopoly. I still want to play in the sandbox too. So perhaps just because the concepts that we create around it aren't real things in and of themselves, they're not meaningless per se. Because when you strip away the fiction of Monopoly, it is just the matter that it is. And I talked about this last week as well. The only thing we have is matter. Take it to the games that we were just playing, right? It doesn't stop at Monopoly. If you enjoy Minecraft, well, really, it's just a series of ones and zeros in technology that projects it on a screen, in a series of code that has this machine run a certain way. And if you think of all of these rules and objections and concepts we have in life, well, most of them are inventions. You can conceive then of a world with no rules and no objective, but you can still have fun and enjoy it. You can conceive of a world with rules and objectives that you enjoy, but understand that beneath the surface, They're rules and objectives that we've created for the purpose of enjoying. So is it too much to then say this life and existence that we share perhaps is just the things that we observe, in that we're flesh, bone, in an array of chemicals?
Oh my God. You're serious. They're made out of meat.
And to the point of many apologists, this is the ultimate argument against atheism, against nihilism, against existentialism. But my rebuttal is to say, yes, sure, okay, there is no God, there is no purpose. And that's exactly why we created ourselves. So from a young age, we can often be indoctrinated into certain religions, certain modes of thought, certain cultures, and certain societal norms and tendencies. At least with the purpose of language, you can see a sort of indoctrination. That I can speak English growing up because I was raised in an English-speaking household. Everything from our infancy is a huge influence upon us. And so, regardless of the rationality or the logic behind it, people are raised religious. But each and every one of us is raised with curiosity, or at least hopefully should be, right? We're all put in a sort of sandbox at one time, and we've all experienced the fact that we can play without a goal in mind, without an objective in our head, and still enjoy and make purpose and meaning from it. So why can't we do that for our lives and our existence? If so, please subscribe, because I'll be talking about this more as a big concept on this channel. Now, if you come, though, from this background, and perhaps you had the unfortunate experience of having that rule of indoctrination, having that rule of some sort of meta logic, meta physics that says that there is a divine plan, there is a purpose, there is a specific road we must follow for our being and existence, and this is it, which is the claim of many of the thousands of religions on the world. You may have then had that creativity and enjoyment for enjoyment's sake pushed to the wayside for the lie of it must have a meaning and a purpose to be meaningful. If you want to then start to reclaim that, I would say look at this existential nightmare we have in the face and embrace it. Let's go on to morality then, which is one of the soonest rebuttals I hear when talking to theists. And a concerning piece of rhetoric is the quick jump to horrendous and absolutely abhorrent things that are perceived I would do. If you didn't have a God, if you didn't have some sort of divine morality, you would be raping all over the place. You'd be murdering as much as murder would be, okay? In dramatic fashion, they would say, why don't you then? It's because you have a gut feeling, and that gut feeling is God. That gut feeling is this divine morality that's been imbued in us from a creator, and therefore God. But can we say, though, in the same way that we create rules for monopoly, in the same way that we create a world for ourselves in Minecraft, we create rules for ourselves as a human society? And wouldn't it make sense then, a society that learns to respect each other's rights is a society that will replenish, is a society that will be plentiful? And I talk about this in my Exploring the Ex-Atheist subreddit, but I think people saying that we have a intuitive purpose and understanding for morality and ethics is therefore evidence of God are falling victim to the fallacy of being the sentient puddle. The puddle in the sidewalk that looks around it and sees the crevices and the cracks and the shape of the hole in the sidewalk and says, look how perfectly this sidewalk crafted itself for me. This sidewalk perfectly crafted me, the puddle, when it was merely a case of rainwater falling in a accidental hole in the sidewalk. We humans come into this accidental hole of life and evolution, which has been going on for over 5 billion years, and we're just an accident from the last 100,000 or so. And so when we've had this strange ability of cognitive function in our prefrontal cortex that allows us to communicate to levels that other species don't quite do, and even then, quick side tangent, I'm going to put up some examples here, but humans don't even have necessarily a particularly special way of communicating that surpasses or is better than other animals per se. But the point is this: we move forward better as a species when we collaborate. If you had a population of humans, which is maybe as we are now, a generic, liberal democratic species of humans, and you have B population of humans, which is everybody is the theist's worst straw man of atheists, people going around murdering and raping as much as they want. The B population will destroy itself. So even if you have much more of the B population and much less of the A population, given enough time, the collaborative, the altruistic, and the progressive population will outlive and outshine the B population. So this is why it doesn't make sense from an evolutionary perspective, even with scientific reasons, why we would need some sort of divine rules imprinted upon us. It's just an emergent quality from evolution. And from a philosophical perspective, it's a non sequitur. You can still have rules and laws that you create that are just as valid, even though we created them. Sure, you can argue that someone else has their own rules, you have your own rules, and that's different, okay? But that doesn't speak to any sort of truth or reality of them. It just means that different people have different values and different rules, and we always will. You never have a monolith of rules, laws, ethics, thinkings in any population, even within those same religions that say they have the way, the truth, and the life. Christianity is a complete diaspora. Whatever branch you look at, whatever denomination you look at, whatever timeline you look at, whatever region you look at, it is in complete disarray with a multiplicity of thinkings and ideas and philosophies. Christianity is so. Islam is so. Judaism is so. Hinduism is so. Buddhism is so. Shintoism is so. Every religion is so. Because we as a human species cannot avoid thinking in different ways from one another, yet being in the same linchpin that we're a coexisting species. So of course we'll tend towards a coexistent philosophy and morality. It doesn't make sense that I would want to murder and rape a bunch of people. For the same reason, it doesn't make sense if I wanted to play Minecraft, I would turn off the computer. It doesn't make sense if I wanted to play in a sandbox, I would throw the sand out of the box. It doesn't make sense that if I would want to play Monopoly, I would burn the cardboard. It's counterintuitive. And even if, and my apologies for the Mont and Bailey, but even if I was some insane maniac who wanted to turn off the computer, who wanted to throw the sand out of the sandbox, who wanted to burn the cardboard, even if I was some insane maniac like this, I would be a diminishing minority because I would be counterintuitive to existing further and further. So then the final question is, well, that doesn't mean it's true then. So what? So what? You have this idea that you want to live forward more as a human species, you want to promulgate more, you have a population that is more coexistent, cohabitable. That doesn't make it any more true. And to that I say, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. The point is that there is no truth to morality or the rules of this world. It's an existential crisis in the greatest sense, in that there is nothing dictating how we ought act or how we ought be. There is no purpose innately set for us. When you look at video games, when you look at games as a child that you play, and when you look at our creativity, our propension to push forward in any circumstance, those are all indicators for how you can still fight in this existential dread and move forward. Thank you so much for watching. To those of you who are patrons on my channel, you were actually able to view this video about a week earlier from its release now on YouTube. And so if you'd like to get the next video in a preview, consider supporting me on Patreon as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.